Thank you for joining me. This is Katie Whitledge with the Beyond the Technique podcast. Today we're talking, how do you know when it's time to rebrand? We're going to get into the full capacity of what that looks like. So if you've been really excited to rethink or reimagine your brand and what it's going to look like for the next 10 to 15 years in this very competitive market, today is an amazing podcast for you. I have first time guest Rebecca Farley joining me all the way from the UK.
The
So
UK, yeah.
yes, I'm so excited to have Rebecca here. Let me just share a bit about Rebecca. She is a brand strategist, graphic designer, and the founder of Sugar Branded Design Studio. She specializes in creating impactful brands within the beauty industry and also works to educate on the importance of branding for business growth. As well as having a degree in business, Rebecca has over 10 years experience in marketing and branding. And in the 6 years since she founded her design studio, she's been able to help her clients achieve features in Vogue, Grazia, Harper's Bazaar, and as well as collaborate with brands such as Nike, Mac, and Navy Pro Tools. How cool is it that Rebecca's here? I'm so excited to have you. Welcome, Rebecca, to Beyond the Technique.
Thank you so much. Yeah, do you know what? It's so nice to recap on all the little wins that we've had over the last few years. I think sometimes as a business owner, it's so easy to get stuck in the day to day of what you're doing and obviously overcoming challenges every day that you don't often get to look back and think, wow, like we've actually done a lot. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited to talk about branding, one of my favorite topics.
Oh, and you're awesome at this. And I just love your energy. For everybody listening today, if you want to see the faces behind the names, please go to our YouTube channel. We have the link in our show notes. You can watch today's episode. It's always raw and unedited on YouTube. So, okay, Rebecca, well, the beauty industry, this is something you specialize in. Tell us, let's go back to the beginning. How did you decide to enter into this branding and graphic design path specifically? And why the beauty industry?
Yeah, so that is a great question. I feel like it's a very long story that I could talk about for hours, but just to keep it short and sweet. So, I have always been like a lifelong entrepreneur. I've always loved creating and working with businesses. Ever since I was a child, it's been like my thing that I do. I'd be making up pretend businesses, making up pretend leaflets, and everything like that. So, it's always been a lifelong passion of mine, branding. I went to uni to study branding and business. And then my dream job at that time would have been to work for like Estee Lauder or L'Oreal in their marketing department. But this was going back maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I feel like at that time, the idea of just going into entrepreneurship wasn't so much of a thing because we didn't have social media. We didn't have all of this accessibility that we have now. And it was almost like you have to go to college or university, study, and then work your way up in a company if you're going to have this amazing dream job, right? And that just didn't happen for me. I wasn't able to get the placement that I wanted. So I kind of thought, gave up on that dream job idea. And then I went into employer branding, working with brands like Jaguar Land Rover and Virgin Media in the recruitment side of things. And I learned a lot about marketing and branding in terms of like working for bigger organizations and bigger brands. But I quickly felt like the 9 to 5 wasn't for me. And I've always had little things on the side. So at the time I was modeling, and as a model, like I was around loads of makeup artists and hairstylists and loads of creatives in the beauty industry. And I was just in awe of the energy that they brought to their work. And I thought, like, I want to have a piece of that. Like, I love that they have their craft and they're passionate about what they do and they're kind of building their own personal brand. And I just kind of thought, I want a piece of that. But I knew that doing like an actual beauty service wasn't something that I wanted to do. So, fast forward a little bit, I also had a hair product line, which I designed myself. And I used to get loads of comments about the branding and the packaging design. And people would say, who did your packaging? Who did your branding? It's so good. And I just did it all myself. So then I kind of thought, I was on maternity leave at the time. I was literally, imagine my 8 months pregnant, a massive baby bump, my laptop on my bump, like just starting this new business. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and create what I thought was going to be my dream job, doing the same sort of work for a big company like L'Oreal and Estee Lauder, but I'm going to do it for myself, for small businesses. So I just reached out to a few people in my network, and asked if they would like me to do work for free. And it just built up from there because I think at the time there wasn't a lot of designers with my kind of aesthetic and design style. There weren't a lot of female designers that were catering to that type of style. It was all a lot of, like, not to generalize, but a lot of, I don't know, so like middle-aged men. You can imagine the type of style that they were like going for. And so I feel like I was one of the first people in the kind of beauty industry, beauty space, specializing in that sort of design style that appealed to that group of people. And so it just took off really quickly from there. And yeah, I guess that's the story in short of how I came to specialize within the beauty industry in branding and design.
I need to back up because I'm like, what?
Sorry, I went through
You
so
had
many
you
details in there.
it's so cool. Like you had your own oh, and I had my own hair product line. I'm like, what? Okay, let's start with that because that is a massive project to even pull off. What was
Yeah.
this about? Like, what made you decide to do this? How did you do this?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm like a lifelong entrepreneur. So Sugar Branded is probably my 10th business. It's just the one that's stuck. So the hair product line was just one of many, and the products were great. But it taught me that what I actually like to do is designing the branding and not so much having a product-based business. So I ended up selling it to one of our stockists. I couldn't even tell you how it came about. I think I just wanted to build something of my own. And I thought, what can I do at home? I could make like natural hair oil products. And it kind of just grew from there. It was just a really random idea, to be honest.
I also think it's interesting that you reached out to people in your network and asked to do work
Mhm.
for free. And I think that there's a group of pros out there who need to hear this. That sometimes, even if you feel like you've arrived when you're starting something new or you're trying to earn the right into a category you don't really have the recognition in yet,
Mm.
that it is still a thing to offer
Yeah.
to do things for free in order to build up a repertoire. So I applaud
Mhm.
you for sharing that and doing that. I think that that's huge. Uh,
Mm.
just
I think
so, yeah.
Yeah, like, I completely agree with you. And I think that there's almost a trend at the moment where it's like, charge your worth, like, don't do things for free. And there's a time and a place for that. I think it's so important to be realistic with your boundaries and what you're going to be gaining from the work. But I think when you are trying something completely new, there's nothing wrong with doing it for free. Like, it A takes the pressure off what you need to deliver. You almost have a sense of control because you can decide what you're willing to deliver within that free remit, right? Without the pressures of having to serve a paying client. And it's just fun. Like, it just gives you a chance to learn and explore. And if you're a beginner, getting that experience is so important. And there's a lot of value in growing that network and getting your name out there as well. When I first started, I was charging, my rates were so low. I would never charge that amount now. However, the benefit I gained from that was that I was able to appeal to a wider audience, and I really got those numbers up in my business and got those eyes on my business. And that was how I was able to become fully booked further down the line because I'd already put in the work and worked with a whole ton of clients for like a low rate that I was able to raise my prices further down the line because I was fully booked. So I think if you go in at a high price straight away without any credentials and without having any reputation, any clients that are going to refer you already, you're kind of setting yourself up for a hard climb to the top, if that makes sense. That's my opinion and my experience.
Yeah. And I think you just hit it on the head. That's your experience. And sometimes we need to take time to do things in a strategic way to build our experience and street cred. So I love that.
Mm.
That's so cool. So you find out I'm really gifted specifically at branding and you're doing it in a unique way for the beauty industry. Tell us some of the kind of businesses in the beauty industry that you work with.
Yeah, so a whole range. And I will say that although the beauty industry is my area of expertise and my niche, I do work with other brands too that have a similar target audience. So I also work with wellness brands like wellness retreats, home fragrance brands, those sorts of things. But in terms of beauty businesses, I help my clients who are more established in the industry launch a product. So if somebody's already kind of mastered the service client facing work and they want to start growing their brand and growing their business, I help them move into product, move into the digital space if they want to, really grow their brands to open up themselves to opportunities. I have people that are launching their flagship salon space and really going all in on building that brand. And then I also help newcomers too. So I love helping people that have just trained and just qualified to really harness that power of branding and really understand how much it can benefit their business in terms of client base growth and opening up themselves to opportunities. So I work with a whole range of people in the beauty industry, definitely varied.
I'm not going to assume people listening really get what it means to create a brand. So, if you had to explain what is branding, what are the things that make up your brand, what would be the answer to that?
Mm. Yeah, so this is a really good one, especially because I just mentioned when people first qualify and they're not already a business owner or familiar with business in general, a lot of people kind of think that branding is just your logo or just how the visuals of your business and how you show up. And that is part of it, but branding is also strategic as well. So it's how you like your tone of voice you use when you're speaking to your clients or when you're writing your captions. It's the sense that you have if you have an actual premises, like what does the interior look like, what sort of music do you play when you're in there, what sort of scents do you use, what retail products do you stock in that space. All of those things are connected to your brand and they build that overall vibe and impression of who you are in the marketplace. So it's so much more than just the visuals and the logo. It's also it's just like how we are as people. So I like to use this analogy where imagine like you and we have a visual representation of who we are, right? But there's so many things that we do and that we put out there that tell people information about us and tell them if we're the sort of person that they want to engage with or they want to be friends with or they want to work with. So it's like the clothes that we wear, what brands do we engage with, what sort of podcast shows do we show up for, um, what are our friends like, what is our network like, all those things tell other people about the type of person we are and what they can expect from us. It's exactly the same when we're building our brand. It's really that complex.
It is complex. And there's so many owners that I'm seeing right now in the beauty space who really want to elevate their brand this year, whether that be rethinking their website, becoming more competitive on digital marketing. How do we know when it's time to rebrand?
Hmm.
And knowing that it's complex, I'll get into more questions like where do we even start with it? But how do you really know, like, whoa, I'm outdated or this doesn't make sense. This is no longer aligned with. How do we know it's time to
Yeah.
rebrand?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So I think, especially, I love working with people that are really established in their industry and helping them create a brand that reflects the level of expertise that they have and where they're at in their business. So, how do you know when it's time for a rebrand? So, a lot of people, if they've been in the industry for a few years, they probably started with a brand that they've either DIY'd or put together themselves, or maybe they just hired a random designer just to get things done and they've kind of rolled with that for a good few years now. And it's no longer reflective of the level of expertise that they have and the level of success that they have or that they could have. So if you are a few years down the line and you're still rocking that brand that you came into the industry all those years back with, and you're still kind of like just making do with it, that is a sign to level up your branding because your brand is the representation of you. It's what we're putting out into the world. So it's so important that it reflects who we are, what we're good at, and the level of expertise that our clients can come to expect from us. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is if your brand should be a functional tool, right? It's a system, a business system, just like your booking system, just like I don't know, like the hair care system you use in your clients. It's a system that should make your business run more smoothly and help you show up as a CEO on a daily basis as easy as possible. So if you are finding that it's becoming time consuming to create content on social media, if you want to, I don't know, create a roller banner or a pop-up banner and you don't have the right logo files for that and you're searching through all these files and you can't find what you need, or you're trying to create an email newsletter and you don't know what fonts to use or what colors to use, and everything just feels all over the place, and anything creative you try to do feels like a headache and it's taking you hours, that's when you know you need to get it together and focus on creating your brand strategy. So hire someone to help you fine tune that system to make your job and doing all these little things as easy as possible. I am like a natural problem solver. So I'm very passionate about the fact that branding isn't just a creative thing, it's also a business system that makes our lives a lot easier. So when you have all the correct logo files, when you have your brand guide there that lists out your specific colors and your fonts and how your styling should be, that's going to make your life 100 times easier. So if you're scrambling when you're creating things, you know that's when you need to focus on creating a proper brand strategy for your business. The third thing I would say is when you've reached the level in your career, whatever that might be, that you're ready for like big opportunities and you want the next big thing, that is when you know you need to get your brand sorted before you start going for those opportunities, because the brand is the face of your business, and having a professionally designed brand should open you up to growth and opportunities and collaborations. It should allow you to get all of these things that you want in your beauty career. Which you know that I'll be the career path can look different for everyone. Maybe you want to go into education, maybe you want to become a brand ambassador, maybe you want to do guest speaking, maybe you want to open a chain of salons. Whatever it is, your brand needs to be on point to get you there. So when you're moving from just doing client facing things and you want to get new opportunities, making sure your brand is on point is really important, because if you want to, for example, if you want to ambassador with a brand, they're going to be looking at how you show up for yourself. Do you look professional in terms of your branding? Are you creating trust through a consistent brand? Have you invested in your business? So are they going to want to invest in someone that seems to be cutting corners and DIYing things? Probably not. Like my clients who have got collaborations with Navy Pro Tools and Nike and all those amazing collaborations they've been able to get are because they have a solid brand identity in place that makes them look like they know what they're doing, they're trustworthy, they're established. So if you want to move on to bigger and better things and open up all these opportunities, it's really important that you have a brand that's going to get you there.
Okay, I want you to imagine like you are one of these big opportunities that a salon, spa, med spa, barbershop brand has an opportunity to collaborate with. So I'm
Mm,
not saying you'd be Nike, but let's pretend you're something like big like that. Okay. If you're checking out a brand and deciding on should we collaborate, is there something special we can do together? Is
mhm.
there anything that you would be like automatic, no way? I see this and it's a no.
Yeah, okay, I love this. So what I would say is that every brand is going to be unique in what standards they want to see and what things they want to see from people that they want to collaborate with. So this is why it's really important to understand who you are in the industry, and that's going to look different for every business. For example, if you are I'm going to say like a hair salon that wants to specialize in like less chemicals, more natural hair treatments, for example. It's important that those values are threaded throughout your brand and how you're showing up, because the brands you're going to want to collaborate with aren't going to want to be represented by you if they see that those values aren't aligning, right? So this is where it comes down to thinking about your brand outside of the visual element and more into strategic. So who are you, if you're inviting influencers into your space, who are these influencers that you're working with? Do they share the values that you have? And the brands you want to approach for collaboration, are they going to approve and connect with this? It's all about creating a system that's interlocked and intertwined and it's intentional in every way. I would say as well that in terms of visuals, big brands want to see that you are consistent and that your brand is professionally designed. So the last thing they're going to want to see is, you've probably seen them, these like Canva logos that everyone's been using, and you see them like 10 times a day because they look cute. They're like very on trend, but everyone's using them from Canva. Yeah. So that's great when you're a newcomer, but when you want to grow your brand and start having these big collaborations, they want to see that you're established enough to have a professionally designed brand that's unique to you. Um, so that's really important as well. And the other thing is that it's so important to remain consistent. So even if you have a brand that maybe is like a 7 out of 10, you can make it a 10 out of 10 by using it consistently across all touch points. So if one of these big brands, for example, goes on your Instagram, it looks amazing, and they reach out to you by email, and then your email signature looks like it's from the year 2000, they're going to be like, they're dropping the ball, like they don't have an eye for detail. So doing like a regular audit check is a really helpful thing that I like to encourage people to do, is to spend half an hour just auditing your brand, like go through your forms, your consultation forms, go through your website, your social media platforms, make sure that they're all aligning as much as possible, because that is also what big brands want to see too. Make this, they want to see that you've got it all together.
I love that you brought that up. I've experienced a brand refresh where the name of the business stayed the same, but the logo changed.
Mhm,
And what's interesting is that really then does touch everything: your exterior signage, your
mhm,
interior signage, your capes, your
mhm,
business cards, your brochures. So, this investment, it's not a small decision when it's
mhm,
time to make that change. But here, if you're going to make this decision, it needs to be with a professional. So,
mhm.
tell us, Rebecca, people reach out to you. They are like, I'm ready to start this process. I know we need it. It's time to elevate. How would somebody begin that process of rebranding with you?
Yeah, so when someone reaches out to me, one of the first things I do is get to really know their goals and vision for their brand. So I would never have a client come to me and go straight into designing. So I would always do a lot of strategy work first. And that comes to understanding where they might see themselves in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, because you don't want to have to rebrand every year, especially my done for you clients where they're investing quite a lot of money with me. It needs to be right, and it needs to be carry them for like years to come, right? So in order to make that happen, we need to understand where we're going. So, for example, I have some clients who know that in 5 years' time they want to go into product. So it's really important that our brand is going to align well and go well on a product line down the line. So I might mock up some ideas of products and just make sure that it's appropriate for how it's going to be used. The other thing that I like to consider is brand equity. So, like with the example that you just mentioned, where they've kept the same name, some of my clients have a really great reputation, and there's something to be said by having a brand that's been used for years, even if it's not the most beautiful brand. We as humans recognize colors, we recognize certain things, and there's value in that, which we call brand equity. So it's really important for me as a designer to consider what value the current brand currently holds, what could we keep out, or should we completely do a whole new thing. So I try and advise my clients of the strategic side of things so that we can decide what is the best decision for their business specifically. Um, yeah, so those are kind of the main points that I would touch on initially.
If somebody goes through this process of rebranding from start to finish, a strategy all the way to it's launched, what does that amount of time look like so that people just have a really reasonable expectation of that process?
Yeah, so do you know what? I think it really depends. It's been really interesting actually this year. I've actually tried a new way of working. So it's funny, like, because I mentioned earlier when I first started my business, I was taking on loads of clients at a very low rate. And I wasn't really doing any strategy. I was just kind of taking their design issue, I was doing the design and handing it back to them. And that was fine. But I found that my clients weren't really getting the true value that I wanted to see and the true results I wanted them to see from branding. And as my confidence and my expertise grew over the years, I then started doing like 4 week long projects, and we'd really dive so deep into the strategy. Um, and we'd have a lot of collaboration with the clients. We'd go on Zoom calls a lot and review every single detail. And people like to work in different ways. So I have some clients that love to be involved and love to literally see every iteration, have loads of revisions. And some people love to do that. Well, I have other people that are just like, Rebecca, I want you to do it, like, just send it back to me when it's done. So the time frame can vary a lot, but I would say it should take a good few weeks, because with creative processes, ideas don't just come to you like that. It's not like a math equation. There's you need to come back to things with a fresh pair of eyes. I frequently design something and then we'll be like, put it away to the next day, and I come back the next day and I have new ideas, or I can really see what it looks like in different scenarios. The other thing that I like to do is give myself time to seek inspiration. So, especially with my product-based businesses, if I have a project on my workspace at the moment, I might take time to go into different stores that they hope to be in. So I have a few clients that want to be in Sephora, that want to be in John Lewis. I don't know, do you have John Lewis in the States? I think,
I
is it
don't
a
think
UK
so.
thing?
Yeah,
It's
I
like a
don't know
dep-
about John Lewis,
like a
but
it's like a premium it's like a premium department store in the
yeah,
UK. So I have clients that want to be in these spaces. So I'll take time to actually go to these stores and see what things are like on the shelves. What are the trends at the moment? What is really standing out to me as a designer? And I take that inspiration. So obviously these things don't happen overnight. So I'd say it's fair to expect a good few weeks of work for a full branding project. You don't want to rush things because, like I said, it needs to last you years. So um yeah.
yeah, good things take time, and I like that
Mhm.
you are even willing to go into a store and look at the way it's been merchandised so far. I don't
Yeah.
think we think that through necessarily, depending on the product lines our salons work with. Not all product lines will curate recommendations on merchandising. So that's interesting. And how does that connect with the brand too? There's just so many things. I think that's the thing I'm noticing is salons who want to elevate themselves are moving away from the DIY
Mhm.
and aligning themselves with pros who really know, can strategize with them. And I know most of them like want to be a part of that collaborative process. They have opinions, they have their vision, but to have
Yeah.
that expertise and then help to bring it to life is so important. So for
Mm,
everybody listening, I have the link in our show notes for you to check out Rebecca's company, their website, and also your Instagram, which is so good. I love
thank you.
these tips. I'm taking a lot of notes, but before we're done, Rebecca, I want to ask, what would be some final words of advice or wisdom that you would share with owners who are really trying to contemplate, is this the right time? And maybe I should start this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So what I would say is my usual like final point on branding that I would want everyone to take away is that branding is a business asset. So it should be like thought of as such. So you need to be thinking about the financial returns that you can get from having a strong brand, right? And when we first start in business, we might not always be in the position to invest. That's just the reality of it. And it's also important to be strategic about where we're investing our money. I think we don't want to get hung up on this trend of you have to invest this much to do A, B, and C. You have to go all in, otherwise you're not going to get any returns. I think you have to be realistic about when you're ready to invest, but you'll know when you are have a successful business that has continuous revenue, it is time to invest in your brand, because if your brand is lacking, you're missing out on that growth and those opportunities. All the things that we've mentioned that we should be striving for in our beauty career, we want to have those things. So, and your brand is going to carry you that way. So, once you know that you're in it for the long run and you know that you love what you do, you want to be top of your game, then that is when you know you need to be creating your brand strategy, hiring someone to help you that, and be in the best place that you can be. So, I would say just remember that your brand is a business asset, just like anything else that you have in your business, that you invest in your business, is a money making tool that should be getting you more sales, getting you more growth, getting you more opportunities, and also saving you time and making your life easier. So remember that it's a business asset. It's not just making things look pretty. And yeah, that's what I would
Well,
say.
yeah, and I love that. And there's two takeaways just from our conversation. One is we do have more competition than ever. So
Yeah.
consumers are looking at all these different things. And I agree with you that 90% of the brands I'm seeing in the beauty industry, they all look so similar. They got
Mhm.
this minimalistic desert, you know, light sandy vibe and Branto, like super neutral, right? Neutral
Uh-huh.
palette.
Uh-huh.
How do we stand out in a crowd? How do we become the Where's Waldo, and really
Mhm.
stand out? I think is something that we need to think about, and doing it in the most elevated, authentic to your brand way possible, which is where you come in. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. I love sugar branded. I almost said Sugar River because we have a Sugar River around here and everything's like Sugar River pizza,
That's
Sugar
a
River,
cute name though. I'm gonna make a note
Sugar
of that.
River. But sugar branded is so fun and you are so awesome. So I really appreciate you being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on and taking the time to speak with me. Branding is one of my favorite things to speak about and teach. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Ah, my pleasure. And thank you all for joining us here week after week at Beyond the Technique. If you appreciate this platform, would you just take a moment and leave us a positive review wherever you're listening so that more people like yourself will discover Beyond the Technique, where we are here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, everybody, have an awesome day and stay strong.